will India ever formally target 10% GDP growth?
I doubt that we should. I think 10% GDP growth is not something that in the present era of global trade is attainable sustainably. And I do not think even the Chinese had attained 10% sustainably. There were 1 or 2 years when they did 10%. I think setting a growth rate target of 10% to me is not very realistic, to be honest.
What's a realistic target, sir? Because I'm sure the concerns include inflation.
Exactly. So what is a realistic target is also a function of global factors. And I think we cannot, there's a very perceptive observation that's been made by Ruchir Sharma, among others, that the rate of growth that a particular country can target is also a function of the rate at which global trade and global growth is happening. So what was feasible in an earlier era, the era of, let's say, dramatic expansion in global trade post 1995, the transition from GATT to WTO, that era is almost over. There is no incremental opening of world trade happening. World trade is relatively open. There's not much more that is opening up. New opportunities are not opening up in the way that they opened up between 1995 and say around 2010. So the feasible rates of growth for this era are something that we have to look at and work towards, but I would not like to hazard a particular figure at this time. I think for the short run, the growth that we are projecting for the coming year of 6.5% will be one of the highest in the world, and I think that reflects a very good performance. And I think some kind of absolute number based on history at different times, etc., is not perhaps a good comparator.
Point well taken, sir. Just one quick follow-up, Dr. Somanathan. Does it mean that when we raise our customs duties, which we have been doing over the last few years to support local manufacturing, are we playing into the global trade cycle, or are we excluding ourselves partially?
See, increases in customs duties are the way that some countries became export powerhouses. Let us not forget that Japan, Korea, most of East Asia started as people with a lot of protection before they became export powerhouses. So this protection for an infant industry is often a valid argument, provided the infant is treated as an infant only for a short while and then quickly weaned off the feeding bottle and made to grow up. If that is done, there is a case for short-term protection while you build comparative advantage in an economy, especially in sectors where you can acquire comparative advantage, but you haven't acquired it because you missed a historical bus and you don't therefore have the scale of component suppliers, etc. So some of our PLI schemes are precisely targeted at areas where India could have a comparative advantage and can still acquire it with a modicum of short-term support.
Are you happy with the outcome of PLI scheme so far?
I think the PLIs in the two early sectors are doing pretty well. That is on electronics and the mobile phones. They're doing pretty well. The others are in early stages of implementation.
And they got hit by COVID in terms
Absolutely,
of implementation.
Yes.
Mr. Malhotra, when GST came, among the other rationals, and I remember reading something which said that it would add 2%, once it had stabilized, of course, to our GDP. But our GST is very different in terms of the exemptions. And since the government is offering taxpayers incentives to move to the new tax regime and give up exemptions, GST is riddled with a long list of exemptions. Do you think GST has added value to India's economy beyond just making life easier for large corporates?
Tremendously. Tremendously. I mean, there's no doubt in GST, there is for every segment of society something, some value, whether it is small or whether it is, a large business. I'll tell you, and you would all, recall, not very long ago, 5 years ago, before GST was implemented, and we used to, travel, and you would be traveling, your own locations from here to Jaipur, and there used to be a long queue of trucks, and you had to wait. Those trucks had to wait, for hours together to cross what there used to be, a checkpost which the Commercial Taxes Department had put up. Today you don't see it. It's all vanished. And this is not true, only of the Jaipur-Delhi highway. Any highway, you take between UP and Bihar, I'm told, within the, within Mumbai used to charge, an octroi, and people had to, the trucks had to wait just, to enter Mumbai and to pay the octroi. So what it has unleashed, this is just, one example. The number of taxes that we had, huge number of taxes. Life, has become simpler. Whether, entertainment is service, or whether, there is a good, believe me or not, entertainment, whether, entertainment should be classified as a service or good, that was under question. Whether electronics is a service or a good, that was under question. So much of litigation, has been avoided. It has obviously, resulted in savings for whether, it is a small taxpayer or for a huge taxpayer. And in terms of revenue, just look at the buoyancy.